Hello, viewer. Welcome to the Romantic Dimension channel. On this podcast, we talk about romantic love as divine love, and that romantic love is not an end in itself. It's a means to love the creator of humanity. And so, today I want to talk about something that I've always been willing to talk about, and maybe I mention it here and there, but I never really expanded on them. When you get into a marital relationship like a marriage, or you're living with somebody, you share everything with that person. Marriage is sharing of ideas, sharing of your spiritual connection, sharing your intellectual connection, and sharing almost everything. And there is a part that makes people become united in a relationship, and that is love, romantic love. And so the last thing that people share with each other is their body. Somebody has to have a spiritual connection, mental connection, and even intellectual connection. What do I mean by mental connection? You see, when you are with somebody, there is always similarity of thinking something alike, and there are things that you have in common, and so there are beliefs that you have in common. For two people to be together in marriage, they must have some common goals and common ideas that make them live with each other. I've also talked about marriages which are not compatible because of various reasons, that people find themselves in a marriage that under normal circumstances, they will not be in those marriages. So today I want to talk about some of the things that when you're in a marriage, you should never accept. We are human beings who have shortfalls, and everybody has their own problems in life. But if we don't control ourselves, we might hurt the people that we claim to love. There are a lot of abuses in marriages, before and even in this modern life. The reason why some young people are very afraid of even the word marriage or even the idea to live with another person is the abuse they have seen in their families, and especially women become the victims in marriages. But I'm not saying that when it comes to abuse, it is only the women who are being abused. However, more women are being abused than men, but even some men are being abused. One of the abuses that you should never accept in a relationship is verbal abuse. How do you know somebody is verbally abusing you? When somebody calls you names, when somebody raises their voice to you, when somebody belittles you, when somebody says something that criticizes maybe part of your body, or they talk about you or to you in a condescending way, those we call verbal abuse. When somebody calls you with names, calling names, insults, there are so many things that somebody can use to belittle you, and that is considered verbal abuse. The tone of the voice, the choice of words, and the manner in which you are spoken to. You need to be respected in a marriage. Yes, you could have made a mistake, but respect is needed for marriage to actually continue to be happy. Nobody's gonna make you in marriage. People talk about that. Nobody's gonna complete you in marriage. All these jargons that we are trying to bring so that when you come there, you are whole. I'm yet to see those whole people who do not have any kind of maybe insecurity or any kind of problems with themselves. Every human being is not 100% balanced. That's why when we get into a relationship, we need to learn the things we should never do to each other. And one of them is verbal abuse. You have to mind the tone of your voice. You have to mind the choice of your words. You need to mind, no matter how angry you are, you cannot belittle somebody or compare them with other people. The other one is physical abuse. There's a lot of physical abuse in marriages, in many families. Some people even have lost their life being physically abused. Do not accept physical abuse in marriage. There are some religious sects and religious people who talk about if you are married, it's for better, for worse. That worse means things can happen that is beyond your means. For example, you can be broke, your husband or your wife can be sick. That is for better, for worse. But the worst part of it, whereby your husband is hitting you, is physically abusing you, you should never accept that. Actually, when you allow somebody to physically or verbally abuse you, you are actually enabling that person to do those things. Seek help if these things are happening to you. Another thing that is so hidden, abuse that is so hidden, is emotional abuse. How does emotional abuse, take place? It seems so settled that it's not easy even to pinpoint that you are being emotionally abused. Sometimes people, after walking away from that relationship or after divorce, is when you realize I was being emotionally abused. But look at these things. When you know that you are not actually comfortable being around your husband or being around your wife without being afraid of them doing something to you or perceiving something about you, you are not emotionally okay around that person. Emotional abuse could be when somebody is not talking to you. How long should somebody not talk to you? Let's say, there is a disagreement. It is true, when you disagree, you don't want to be disagreeable. So sometimes somebody will say, you know what, I'm not going to be talking. I'm not going to be, going on with this conversation. So I'm going to take my pause. That means you're just taking a break from the conversation or from the fight or the argument. So it is wise to say that I'm shutting up instead of talking, because this talking is going to be toxic and we're going to keep on fighting. But for how long are you going to shut up? For 2 days? For 1 week? For 1 month? For a year? That's emotional abuse. When your spouse is not talking to you at all, it's an emotional abuse, because conversation is how we communicate with each other to know, what does my husband need? What does my wife need? What should we do? But when you are talking to each other, you are not talking to each other. It means that communication completely broken down. There is one thing to miscommunicate. There is another thing completely not to talk to each other. There are men who say that I'm not going to have sex with you. That's an emotional abuse and also sexual abuse. To me, it is. Because when you deny somebody the conjugal rights, actually, you are actually breaking one of those, vows that you vow is for better, for worse, which means people, when they have a disagreement, they need to talk to each other so that everything else continues. But you can be emotionally abused when your husband, after doing certain things, maybe indiscretion or something, they still want to have sex with you. Problems need to be solved before sexual intercourse takes place. That is emotional abuse. Because if somebody insulted you, they never apologized, and they still want to have sex with you, that's an emotional abuse. It is. Sexual abuse becomes when a woman says that, oh, you wronged me, I'm never going to have a sex with you. That's an abuse. We need to solve our problems. I always encourage couples to look at their marriage as a business. When you run a business, you have employees, you have bills to pay, and you have a business to run to make sure that your business succeeds against all the other competitors around you. So you make sure that every employee is satisfied there. you make sure that actually your business is growing. Because if your business is not growing, eventually that business is going to go under and you're going to lose all your investment. And we never see that when you get married to somebody, you invested your emotions. You invested yourself, your body into that marriage. That's why you sleep with each other. You invested yourself as a person. You invest your money. You invest your life. Apart from you giving your body to the other person, you invest your life to that person. And that's why somebody can kill you, because your life is in their hands. Your life in their hands. How many women have killed their husbands at night or poisoned them? So we must remember that whatever we do with each other in marriage, we need to have an idea and a plan of making sure that this marriage is progressing to a better version of it. What do I mean? You see, when people start living together as a married couple, it's just the two of them. Mostly, some families start with already children in the marriage or, from previous relationships. So, but you're starting somewhere. And then for those people, ideally, who never started with, maybe having children already, then later on the children are coming. So you see, every point, the dynamic changes. Because now when you have a baby, it means that you have to take care of the baby financially, and who is going to take care of the baby when maybe the mother is going to work and all that. All those dynamics, it changes everything. A couple have to be ready for these changes. You see, we should not be people who react to situations which are normal. Like, you should not be reacting to your husband, to your wife being pregnant. You are reacting. You should know that once you get married, pregnancy can happen. Even when they are on contraceptives, I say that. You might be planning to say, you know what, we are not having a baby now, maybe for 2 years, but then the contraceptives do not work. Whatever, prevention method you are using is not working. So then, boom, now you have a baby, and then now you have to plan to how to take care of this baby. Then as these babies grow, then another baby comes. Things keep on changing. So when you get married, you need to adjust how you communicate, how you plan your life according to these changes that happen. Because when we are not prepared with these changes that happen in marriage, this is where abuse comes in. This is where the woman is so busy, she doesn't have time for the husband, and so sex life becomes very sketchy, not predictable. And that can really be frustrating to a man. And so this man could be hanging around with the other people because, when he comes home, there's nothing that he's expecting to happen that will make him feel like, okay, I'm close to my wife. Another thing that we need to know is that there are changes in financial obligations. As you get married, financial obligations change. The idea that a woman comes into a marriage and say that your money as a man or as a husband is our money, but my money is my money. That is a selfish agenda. If you really want your relationship to grow, it doesn't matter. Your husband could be a millionaire and you are only earning maybe $20,000 a year. But that money that you bring in is still part of the money that belongs to both of you. It belongs to the family. If you feel like you don't want to sacrifice your money, you don't want to sacrifice your time, you don't want to sacrifice anything for another person, then you should not get married. I agree with those people who feel like marriage is a slavery. I listened to this young woman who was talking about, I'm never gonna cook, I'm never going to clean for somebody, because if you look at marriage through the angle of just doing things for the other person, then it's actually slavery. But if you look at marriage through the angle that you are loving this person, and there is no way you can love somebody without serving them. That's the truth. When we talk about the biblical marriage, we find that marriage, God, our relationship with God is explained on with our marriages. For example, Jesus calls himself the husband, and all his followers are the bride, as the bride. But what did Jesus do? What does the Bible say? The Bible says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and served it and sanctified it. And this is why I just don't come here and tell people how they should be happily married without a foundation, which is the Word of God. I don't. This is why abuse happens. Because somebody is frustrated, they don't fear any God in their life, they're going to be abusive to their wives because they don't have any fear of God. And even those people who claim to be godly and doing this kind of abuses, they don't know God. The Bible says, whoever does not love does not know God. And somebody said something that I agree with. If you allow yourself to be abused, you are just as guilty as the abuser. Never believe in the idea that there is nothing you can do. That is not true. Every step of the way, you are given time to make a decision. People make even decisions to die, but to stand for the truth. Yeah, they are making that decision. But somebody who always wants to save something, like some of the women especially, who do not realize that trying to save a marriage which is dangerous to your life is actually not right. You're trying to save marriage, you're trying to live with this man who is abusing you, who will kill you, and then your children will remain orphan and he will go to jail. Have you ever thought about that? That sometimes leaving your abusive husband is not because you hate him. It is loving him so that he does not commit a crime of killing you, going to jail, and then your children will remain orphans. We never think about that. You know why? Because in society, marriage gives you status. So you could be in a very bad relationship. You are beaten every day. He's sleeping with women all over. But because you want to maintain the status quo, you are there, pretending that you are there for the children. No, the children know. Our children can read our faces, even when they are little as 2 years, to see that mommy is not happy, to see that dad is not happy. I'm not here to encourage divorce. Divorce is never a solution. But divorce can be a solution to abuse. Remember, as a woman, when your husband is sleeping with all those other women, we have deadly diseases. One of them is HIV. The other day they said they found a vaccination, but how many people have access to those medications? You need to love yourself enough to know that you should not live with somebody who is physically abusing you, who is sexually abusing you. What do I mean sexually abusing you? Did you know that your husband should not have sex with you if you say no, even in the eyes of the law? If you don't want sex, he needs to know that you don't want sex. And why shouldn't a woman want sex? It is because maybe the husband is abusive, or is sleeping, or is not talking to you. So he just wants to have sex with you as an action to satisfy his need and not yours. That's a sexual abuse. It happens a lot in marriage, or sometimes the husband trying to have sex by force while you say no, you don't want. I know when we talk about women abusing men sexually, it's not like, physical per se, because you can't force a man to have sex with you. Physically it's very hard to force a man to have sex with you. It's hard. But for women, a lot of women have been subjected to forced sexual, intercourse, which should not happen. Another thing is financial abuse. Have you seen those men who are out there giving donations and doing other things but neglecting their families? They're out there buying maybe big things, not in the names even of the wife. Be very careful. When your husband is buying land, they are buying houses, they are investing in these businesses, but your name is not there. I found one woman who told me, oh, I trusted him because he was a man of God. Let me tell you, the fact that somebody say they are religious does not mean they know God. The Bible specifically says in the 3rd book of John that whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. How do we know that? Because of the principles by which God tells us, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And when that God appeared in the scene of history, he loved humanity. He made the blind see. He fed the poor people in the streets. He resurrected the dead. So these religious jargons that somebody comes and tells you, oh, I know God, I'm in church. No, it doesn't matter what people profess to be. It is what they do. Take what somebody does. And I like what the Bible says. The Bible says that God is not going to judge us by our faith, that how much faith you had, how much Holy Spirit you are filled with. No. The Bible says your actions will be judged. It's your actions. So take somebody's actions, not what they profess to be. So these abuses happen even among people who call themselves Christians and religious people. Actually, there's more abuse in religious marriages than any other. Because of restrictions, the women are put in some kind of category. The women cannot do this. The woman cannot say this. Those are abuses, because when somebody tries to make you retarded, how do you know you are retarded? When you cannot maximize your potential. If you're a woman who can sing, you are not going to sing because your husband doesn't want you to sing. It's a sort of an abuse. They are retarding you. It's like being aborted before you reach your potential. The woman has the talent of maybe being in sports, like these women who are running, doing, long distance. And then your husband is saying, no, you can't do that. Or the society, no, the woman cannot, run there naked. Those are all things that are called abuse. They might not be, harming you immediately or physically, but it's making you not progress. And this is why I want to encourage, these good politicians to make sure that the women are educated, because an education will give you the right to know what is good for you, so that you are not abused by the man you should be loving, the man that you love, the man that is the father to your children. You need to refuse abuse all of. So how do we avoid that? Before you marry somebody, know if they have anger issue. If somebody ever threatened to beat you, you should never marry that kind of a person. If somebody slaps you the first time, you need to let them know that is the last. It should never happen again. You need to put boundaries that if it happens, that will be the end of the marriage. You need to stand your ground. Nobody's going to save you from your husband, trust me. Nobody's going to save you from an abusive wife. You need to stand your ground. How do men get abused? Did you know that as women, nagging a person is a form of abuse? The Bible says a man would rather sleep on a rooftop rather than stay with a woman who is nagging. What is nagging? It is always insisting that your way is the best. Keep on talking to your husband's ears to do exactly what you want. If your husband does something for his family, you are always feeling like, oh my goodness, you are wasting money, you are doing this. It is a control mechanism, controlling somebody who is an adult, who should have their own mind. How else are men being abused? Your wife can abuse you financially. While she should be, instead of saving money, she's busy buying things which are not important. She's busy buying things which are just, to show off. I think I talked about a woman you should not marry, a spendthrift, somebody who is just spending money on their hair, on their nails, on their clothing, on their shoes. Then let's say something happens, you don't have that good job or your business fails. You don't have any savings because all what she did was to spend your money and then leave you poor. And maybe on top of that, she might leave you and divorce you poor. after she spent your money. So be watchful of the financial abuse, or somebody who just want to use you for their own good, where if you don't have money, they are not sleeping with you and they are your wives. Or they sleep with you, they have sex with you on conditions that, oh, you have to buy me this, you have to buy me this. That's, prostitution. That's prostitution. Actually, I'm going to come up with another topic of a book I wrote about men and women who are married. And this prophet said, the way they're having sex, they're committing adultery before the Lord. I'm going to bring that topic. So, if you really want to maintain happiness in your marriage, you have to work on it. You have to work on it. It's not going to be automatic that your marriage is going to work out. No. These abuses are very common among married people. If it's not verbal, it's physical. If it's not physical, it's emotional. If it's not emotional, it's sexual. Your husband goes, maybe for 6 months. He comes back, he's too tired. Or he overworks himself, and so he's too tired to have sex. The woman is overworking herself. She's always doing something in the house. She comes from work, she's always cleaning, and so there is no attention. It is, sexual denial is sexual abuse. So you look at these signs and say, what could be ailing your marriage? Because we are so quick to say this man was this, but you never made any stop to it. You never made any stop to it. Remember, when you allow these abuses to happen to you, they are not making you better, the person who is trying to take these abuses. The victim does not remain the victim all the time. Let me tell you that. A lot of women who have killed their husbands, most of them have been abused, either verbally, emotionally, physically, or even sexually. Like, if you remember the story of that woman, I think from one of the southern parts of America, who had like 5 children with a husband, and the husband every night would make her dress like a prostitute, like a hooker, and all those women who, parade themselves naked. He had bought some shoes so that she can act like a prostitute. She shot the husband dead. So don't take any kind of abuse, because it makes you become a culprit in the long run. Because the one day you're going to snap. There used to be a program on TV that used to be called Snap, whereby people snapped and killed their spouses. So spouses abuse can lead to death of somebody. And just like I'm repeating here, if you allow yourself to be abused, eventually you will stop being a victim and you become a culprit, even by default. You're enabling this husband to do that. If you leave somebody because they are abusive and let everybody know that they are abusive, he need to learn so that maybe next time he can stop being abusive to the next woman or to the next man. Women are abusive when they talk down to their husbands, when they talk ill of their husbands everywhere. Everybody knows about your husband and his weaknesses. That is a form of abuse, because somebody it's like character assassination. You go to your parents and talk ill of him, and then you come back to him. Sometimes I feel like if you talk so much ill of your husband, why don't you just go one way? And now you are free to talk about what was happening in marriage. Why would you talk so many bad things if you're not looking for a solution? You are talking bad things about your husband with your co-workers, with your friends, with your relatives, but you're not doing anything about it. And let me tell you, in my life, I always shun those women. If you're talking to me about your husband, we are looking for a solution to solve that problem. And the solution could be maybe have a meeting with the family and talk about the problem you are facing in that marriage, or go for marital counseling, or you might have to make a decision if you really need to stay there or maybe leave. Instead of always talking ill of your husband, but you are there because you want to maintain that status quo, so you are no better. You're just bad as he. So never accept to be abused. When you're accepting to be abused, you're telling your children, if you have children, that it's okay to live in this kind of mediocre marriage where people curse at each other and the people talk down to each other and using slurs and using curse words. Let me tell you, I know today people use the F word everywhere with punctuation. It's not a fashion. It means that you are low class. That's the truth. Because can you use a curse word with a president or with a CEO? No. So why are you using those words? If you really respect yourself, you're not going to use those words. And I'm glad that the Bible says whoever uses those curses is sinning. Because you have to mind what you're saying. And why do we use the F word? Why do you want to insult sex so much? If you are a sexual being created in the image of God, why do we use insult using the sexual slurs? Why do we use that? Why do we use that? Have you ever asked yourself? It's because we don't respect ourselves. You are at your base level, animal base level, to be using curse word to talk to people. You need to love yourself enough to say, I'm not going to use curse words. And I don't tolerate people who use curse words around me. I tell them, I don't want to hear that because it doesn't add value to my life. It makes me cringe when people use those. So why are you using those curse words to this person that you should be loving? We become our own enemies when we apply abuse. If you have been frustrated, yes, there are frustration in marriage. Just like I started saying here before, that human beings, we make mistakes. And I can anger my husband. It doesn't give him a right to look down upon me, to talk down to me, because that will not be the end of problems. People make wrong decisions. This is why marriage is for better, for worse. But that worse doesn't mean you give me your worst. No. Give me your best always. There are times that you might not be at your best. I need to take that too. But not your abuse and your insults. No. Women, you need to respect yourself enough to know that even though the society feel like when you are married is when you have a status and respect, still you can respect yourself and have your own peace.